Good hello and welcome to the third guitar lesson in my introductory 6 series guitar lessons for fingerstyle or right hand classical guitar technique. In the first 2 lessons we have learnt how to place the right hand, how to tune the guitar, how to sit with the guitar, and we started to play some arpeggios and some chords using right hand technique, and we introduced the index finger, number 1 finger on the left hand in lesson number 2. To summarise what we learnt in the first 2 guitar lessons, firstly we took the right hand, placed it on the top of the body, the elbow, like so, and lowered it down like a record player arm. So the thumb lands on the 6th string, that's the thick string at the top, this one, and that the index, middle and ring fingers land on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings from the bottom, 1, 2, 3 and 6. The left hand fingers, we only used the index, number 1 finger, placing the thumb behind the fretboard and placing the number 1 finger behind the 1st fret of the 2nd string C, like so. Our first exercise was using the right hand, moving the index I, middle M, ring A fingers, that's the Latin, I, M, A, like so, swinging from the knuckle joint underneath the hand at 45 degrees across the strings. The first chord we played using open strings was E minor, and it sounded like this. Separated as an arpeggio sounded like this. Then we added the thumb. The thumb plays the bass strings primarily, not always, but probably 96 or 97% of the time. The thumb striking down on the bass string like so, circling around and striking again, that being the note E. Therefore we completed an E minor chord using open E bass on the 6th string, G on the 3rd string, B on the 2nd string, and then E again on the 1st string. The chord with the bass E sounded like this, and as an arpeggio sounded like this. Then we added, with the 1st finger on the left hand, the note C, placing the finger behind the fret on the 2nd string, 1st fret. And we did the same exercise with the right hand as a chord, playing all the notes together. That's the chord of C major, C, E, G. And then as an arpeggio, this week I'd like to introduce another chord and another left hand finger, whilst expanding also on the right hand chords and arpeggios that we did previously in the first 2 lessons. This week I'd like to add on the left hand the ring finger, that's the 3rd finger. So we've already learnt how to use the 1st finger, number 1, behind the 1st fret of the 2nd string, being C. I'd like to introduce the ring finger playing on the 2nd string, of the 3rd fret this time, being the note D. So if we hold the D note down, that's 3rd fret, 2nd string, and then use the same arpeggio that we did in the 1st and 2nd lessons with the right hand, we end up with a chord that sounds like this. As an arpeggio, that is a chord of G with an E in it. So it's a G with an added 6th. Now, what I would like to do is adjust or change notes as we go with the arpeggio. So we'll start with what we did last time, with the left hand number 1 finger behind the 1st fret, C, and after the first arpeggio runs through, we will change from the 1st finger behind the 1st fret to the 3rd finger behind the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. So we'll be going from C major to a G chord with an add 6, and it will sound like this. Notice we're not using any thumb notes on the right hand. The thumb remains on the 6th string while we're playing arpeggios with the right hand fingers. Let's hear that again, a little bit slower. If you're struggling to change your fingers on the left hand, you can slow the tempo down, meaning tempo being speed, to something more like this. And if that's still too hard, you can slow it down even more. As long as the notes are full and the rhythm is steady and even. I'd like to add one more note this week to finish, and that is the note F on the 1st fret of the 1st string, being here, played with the 1st finger again on the left hand. Note as well, again, that the right hand remains in this position, its home position, fingers 45 degrees angled across the strings, thumb resting, not pressing down hard, just gently. So when we place the right hand finger, number 1 finger, index finger, behind the 1st fret of the 1st string, we get the note F. When we play that as a chord, as we learnt previously, using I, M and A fingers on the right hand all together, we get this chord. That's called a G7 chord. It's related to the other chord that we learnt last week, C major, quite closely, often coming directly before the C major chord to resolve the harmonic structure of many, many songs and pieces that you'll hear. And it sounds like this when you move from G7 to C. It's a standard resolution perfect cadence. So, this week, for your practice, continue with what we did last week, including the E minor arpeggio and chord using just the right hand. So that's playing the E 6-string bass with the thumb, and the G with the I finger, B with the M finger, E with the A finger as a chord, like this, and as an arpeggio, like this, and like this. And then adding the C major chord, first finger, number 1 on the left hand behind the first fret of the 2nd string, like this, as a chord with the right hand fingers, and as an arpeggio. The new exercise is adding the 3rd fret D with the 3rd finger, the ring finger on the left hand, behind the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and playing the arpeggio like this. And then changing as you strike this note G to the 3rd fret of the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then back again. The second new exercise this week is adding in the G7 chord, which is using the 1st finger on the left hand behind the 1st fret of the 1st string, the note F, but playing the notes on the right hand, I, M and A, it sounds like this. G7. And the second exercise being C major, 1st fret behind 2nd string, and then moving across to the 1st fret of the 1st string to our G7 chord, and then back again. That gives you plenty to practice this week. At the end of the series of 6 lessons, I will be offering a free group lesson for anyone who'd like to clarify, ask questions, or for understanding various concepts. I'll introduce the time and date as we reach the end of our 6 introductory lessons. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week.